Hey everybody, I'm David England, and I wanted to give you some pointers on auditioning for 7th and 8th grade mid-state snare drum. Over the past 25 plus years, I've been judging mid-state, and there are a few things that I want to share with you that will help put you in the best possible light, and a few pitfalls that hopefully I can show you how to avoid. First of all, when you get to the auditions, one of the important things for you to have is your sticks and a practice pad. When you go to practice, a practice pad is immeasurably important because number one, there's going to be so much noise that if you have this, you're going to be able to hear yourself a little bit better and you won't disturb everybody else by playing on a drum. Secondly, if you plan to practice during the day, this is the best way for you to do that. One thing that you have to avoid doing is outside of the audition room, drumming on a pad or drumming on the floor or anything that's loud at all will be heard in the audition room. So please don't practice on the floor or anything loud outside the practice rooms. Even this practice pad could be very loud if a lot of people have it. So no drumming outside the audition rooms. No practicing outside the audition rooms. Just come down when you're ready and wait for your turn to come in. Do all your practicing in the designated areas. Secondly, if you're going to be coming with your own drum, make sure that the drum is tuned and that it sounds good. We hear a lot of this kind of drum. So when somebody comes up and the first thing we hear is then automatically we have a negative opinion of that performer because the drum just sounds terrible. So one of the things you could do is make sure that it's tuned up. Make sure it's not that low. That may be a good sound for a drum set snare, but it's not a good sound for a concert snare. So make sure it's tuned up tight enough to where when you play, you can be articulate and be heard. Now that's better, but the snares are far too loose. Way too rattly. So what we want to do there is tighten up the snare strainer. Just tighten this knob, bring the snares up. That's better, but we don't want it to be too loose. That's more like it. Just find something to your liking to where when you play, it's going to sound a little bit more like your concert snare drum. When you get into the room, there will be other snare drums in there. The audition site will provide some drums. So if there's a drum in there and you would prefer to use that drum that's in there, go ahead. That's why they're in there. So if you don't have a drum for the audition, there will be good snare drums in there for you to use. If you have one and you just can't get it to sound right, feel free to use whatever is provided for you at the audition. Next thing is the rudiments. When you come in the room and you play the rudiments are designated on this sheet. On the line, the particular line on the rudiment sheet, all you have to do is set a tempo and play that rudiment and play that line. Now, one of the things that will help you a lot in the audition is to set yourself up for success by how you sound on your rudiments. So number one is to make sure you don't play them too fast. Make sure it's at a tempo that will sound good for you to play. If we take the first rudiment listed, the single paradiddle, and you come into the audition, if you're going to go, then you need to make sure that you're going to sound really good doing that. If you don't want to sound bad, then you need to pick a tempo that works for you, such as find a tempo that makes you sound good. It doesn't have to be super fast. It shouldn't be super slow. If you end up playing that slowly, we will probably have you stopped at some point in the rudiment and say, okay, that's good, go on to the next rudiment. Because the timing of the audition can be really held up by someone who plays the rudiment very, very slowly. While there are no particular tempo markings that you have to play these at, please keep in mind if you do play the rudiments extremely slow, that we may ask you to stop halfway through and move on to the next rudiment. The next thing you need to remember is that rudiments like the paradiddle, the flam tap, the flam accent, 5-stroke and 9-stroke roll all have accents. Make sure that you play the accent with the rudiment. That's the way the rudiment is supposed to be performed. When you play the drag rudiment, it needs to be an open drag, not a concert or a buzz drag. Again, these are rudiments and have to be performed as rudiments. So just to give you an idea, as you're playing the paradiddle rudiments, make sure they have 2 heights. I played the regular paradiddle. Here's the double paradiddle. So if you're going to play that, then make sure you have 2 heights. Loud for the accent, soft for everything else. That's the way the rudiment should be performed. With the flam accent and the flam tap, just try to make sure you have the accent and that the grace note of the flam is close to the head. If you can play them faster, try to avoid having what we call flat flams, which means both hands would actually hit at the same time. You can hear how the drum pops when you do that. That's not a good sound. So try to avoid flat flams. You want flams to have the grace note about 1.5 inches from the head and the primary stroke 9 to 12 inches above the head. When you play the flam tap, same thing. There's a slight decrescendo for each hand. So the flam taps have to be played with an accent as well. Moving on to the drag, you're going to want those to be open. I always like to use the phrase dig-a-dut, 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 dig-a-dut. Should sound open. A double stroke and then a primary stroke. Want them to be open and not closed. Closed would be this. We want the rudiment to be an open drag. The next on the single stroke floor, strive for evenness. Again, they can be played as fast as you want to as long as you play them well. However fast you want to play is up to you. Just make sure that it makes you sound good and puts you in a good light. The next one would be the 2 double stroke roll rudiments, the 5 and the 9. Here, the idea is you want the open roll to go into the accent. That would actually be very slow. A good tempo to play this at would be about here. So you have a good open roll going into an accent. Try to avoid, again, buzz rolls. Work on good double stroke quality. A couple of things you can do to help with that would be just to work on stroke bounce technique. In both hands, and then practice putting those together. Then just speed it up. While that's not a great quality double stroke roll, it is a double stroke roll, and it's something you can build on once you have that basic concept down. The 9-stroke roll, same thing. You can build it like I just showed you, but it should sound like this. At a good tempo would be this. There are other ways to play these rudiments in different variations, but the sheet that is included here gives you these particular parameters to play it in, so it would be best if you played it in those parameters. If you have another way that you're going to do it, our only advice to you is just make sure, once again, that it's something that makes you sound good. But we would prefer that you play the way it's written on the sheet. Lastly, on the multiple bounce or the buzz roll, remember it has to be played from soft to loud to soft. A lot of students will start at the edge and come out to the center, and that's a great way to do it. One thing that you have to do when you play this roll is to practice playing it even. Two things will help you with the buzz roll. One is the amount of pressure that you put on the stick. The other is the speed of the roll itself. So here's an example of a buzz roll with not enough pressure. Here's an example of a buzz roll with too much pressure. This is an example of just the right amount of pressure. The issue I'm having right now is that I'm not playing fast enough for the roll. So if I speed my hands up, I can even it out. So my hands are only going this fast. But I've got enough pressure and enough speed to make the roll sound good. Squeeze here at your fulcrum and keep the back fingers away from the stick or just barely touching the stick. As far as zones, I like to teach this as start at the edge and do a couple of beats at the edge, a couple of beats in between edge and halfway, a couple beats halfway, a couple beats in between halfway and center, a couple beats in the center, and then go back down. Remember, it's not just the zones that change the volume, it's your touch and how heavy or how light you play. Typically, you would want to play a little faster and a little more pressure when you play softer, a little less pressure when you're playing louder with a little bit faster hands in the center. So it would be like this. To the center, I would stay there and just repeat that same zone, 2, 2, 2, 2. And by 2, I mean it could be 2 sextuplets, 2 16th notes, 2 sets of 16th notes, 2 sets of 32nd notes, however you want to think about it. You can think about it like 1, 2, 1, 2, triplet, 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 however you want to think about it, just to give your hands equal amount of time per dynamic per zone, and see if that helps. So these are just a few pointers on auditioning as far as the rudiments are concerned, and this should get you a good start and a good starting point. The main thing you want to show when you do your rudiments is that you are a technically proficient and decent player when it comes to hands. The rudiments will show us what kind of hands that you have. If you have good hands, you should be able to perform these rudiments at an adequate tempo and make them sound good. As far as tempos are concerned, again, it would be up to you. Whatever makes you sound good is the key. It's not always the people that play the fastest that end up getting into the band or even a higher chair. A lot of times it's the people that play with the best quality and the best sound. So keep that in mind. I hope this has helped you with the rudimental part of the audition, and I hope that you can use this information to your advantage. Thanks.